everything okay?
Yeah, Sarah was just thanking me for dropping Nathan. For really dropping him, that is.
Look, I know. And it's in the past, okay? I'm not interested.
Guess what? What? Dee Dee and Joel are engaged.
Each to their own, I guess.
You've got a bit of a downer on him.
No, Mother, what I've got are spidey senses.
All right, whatever, Bethany.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
The talk of the street.
Talk of the street.
Welcome to episode 309 of The Talk of the Street, an unofficial Coronation Street culture podcast that reckons every living soul at 12 Victoria Court has looked into the artificially generated eyes of the thing that will eventually kill them all. I'm Gavin.
And I ate too much lo mein today.
Funnily enough, so did I, because I ate the whole thing.
Did you have lo mein as well?
Mm-hmm. I got the special lo mein.
Oh yeah, you didn't get the veggie lo mein. No. You're Scottish, you're not allowed to be vegetarian even for a day.
I'm not allowed to be what?
A vegetarian.
I have no idea what that is. No, I get the special lo mein, so I get a little bit of everything. If there's a mixed grill on the menu, I'm going to have the mixed grill. Sadly, in the US, they don't really have mixed grills that often.
You get them at steakhouses sometimes, but it's true because when we go to Mexican restaurants, you get the fajita with everything, which is like a mixed grill, Mexican style.
My favourite mixed grill that I ever had was in a town near Sea Houses in Alnwick on the northeast coast of England with my colleague Stubbs. He was holidaying there and I went down to visit him, and we went to a pub and had their mixed grill, which had steak, pork chop, lamb chop, sausages, bacon, black pudding, something else, a couple of other meats, and we could not move after that. It was...
If my colon wasn't screaming already, you've just put it in full-blown panic attack.
Now, there was
just listening to this.
There was a small spoon of mushrooms as well, so it wasn't all meat. How are you this week?
Exhausted.
I'm sore and exhausted. My big toe is agony still.
Yeah, and my middle finger.
Invent your own punchline, listeners.
Yeah, the knuckle has just been sore for a week now, and I have no idea why.
Well, I think I injured my big toe at the rock show on Wednesday night. But it won't bend.
Yeah.
And it should bend.
Yeah. On Wednesday night, we drove to Toledo.
About 2 hours away.
For a punk show. And it was great. We went to see Plum Vision, which is our daughter's favorite band of the moment.
I didn't realize
Boise, Idaho.
I didn't realize how much they were our favorite band. This is a conversation that started in February when I was driving her back and forth to the bowling, and we were talking about how expensive concerts are for bands that you love.
Right.
So Toadwick Sprocket tickets are expensive even. Metric tickets are expensive, so it's far better to find...
Stevie Nicks tickets were $200 for nosebleeds.
So it's far better to find a band that sounds like the band that you love, that nobody knows. For example, I love Metric. They're very expensive. Wilderness sound pretty much like Metric, but are much, much cheaper because nobody's ever heard of them.
Right, except for us.
So this got Stelly onto a little side project of looking up on Spotify bands who have less than 500 followers and less than 1,000 monthly downloads. And she found a batch of female-led indie punk garage bands, all from Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, Boise, Idaho.
One of whom, Plum Vision, some months later, announced that they're touring, and they're touring the Midwest, and they're coming to Toledo. Stelly, on Wednesday, is in the middle of her final exams.
Yes.
And I didn't really give much thought to that and said, we need to go and see Plum Vision then.
Yeah. And she didn't object.
She does not object.
Nope. And apparently she aced her exams.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
It all worked out fine in the end. But it was hilarious. because she ended up making friends with the band because there was only like 20 people there
Right, yeah.
at the Ottawa Tavern of Toledo, Ohio.
And she told them that we had driven 2 hours away, and they were so stunned by this. They were so amazed that someone would drive for 2 hours just to see them play that they came over to where we were sitting at the bar, and thanked us for driving 2 hours away just to hear them play.
It was the most
And it was
wholesome,
delightful.
the most wholesome punk show I've ever been to.
Seriously, they couldn't have been nicer or sweeter or more grateful.
Yep.
Not something that you typically attribute to punks, especially if you don't know actual punks, because punks are like the Insane Clown Posse. They get a bad rap, but they only look scary.
Yeah, I don't think Sid Vicious would have given Stella a hug.
No, and I wouldn't want Sid Vicious to give her a hug.
Exactly.
Sid Vicious wouldn't thank her for driving for 2 hours to see him either. He would say, "Of course you drove 2 hours to see me."
I didn't
Why
realise.
wouldn't you?
I thought that this was almost a little bit of a joke between us of how much she liked Plum Vision. But when we were standing there and they were playing, she kept on turning to me and saying, "That's Plum Vision." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah.
And she says, "And they're right there." Yeah, I know. She really was blown away. It was just lovely.
It was great. And as a result, we've gotten some of our friends into Plum Vision as well, just by posting about the show on Facebook. And I even got to shout out another girl punk band, this one's Scottish, to one of our friends, saying, "If you like Plum Vision, you will also like Big Girl's Blouse, because they're an awful lot like Plum Vision, only with cooler accents."
And who knows, maybe we've got a listener or two to look them up on Spotify as well.
Yes, Plum Vision and Big Girl's Blouse.
Yes.
And Wilderness.
Yes, all
Yeah.
very good stuff.
Support your local girl punk band.
Even if local means Boise, Idaho. All right, shall we preamble, my dear?
Yes, please.
Give us some of that punk Corrie news.
Sad news, as it seems our Gale, Helen Worth, is retiring
Oh, noes.
and leaving the street forever.
Oh, noes.
I didn't realize how torn up about this I was going to
Yeah,
be.
you were genuinely upset. It also took
am-
me by surprise a bit.
I am genuinely upset she's leaving. I mean, more power to her, and she deserves all of the time off in retirement in the world. Don't get me wrong. But I will genuinely miss Gail. I think I'm more upset about Helen Worth leaving than I was about Charlie.
What?
Seriously.
She doesn't mean it, Charlie.
I may mean it, Charlie, and I'm sorry. She's an institution.
She has 50 years on the cobbles.
Yeah.
The second longest serving cast member after William Roach.
Yes.
Ken Barlow, obviously.
Who will never retire.
And here's my question for you, Helen.
Yes.
Is Helen Worth doing now what Bill Roach should have done a few years ago?
Yes.
I kind of think so too. Enjoy a bit of retirement. Put your feet up.
Right. Yeah, seriously.
She's been in 2 shows. She's been in Coronation Street and she's been in Doctor Who.
Yeah. So she couldn't be more British if she tried. Like I said, she's an institution.
She's an institution. I think her characters probably is near its end. She's become a kind of comedy character. She hasn't really had an awful lot to do. She had very little to do in the whole Stephen storyline, which was a bit of a shame.
Yeah. She's a rock in that family, though.
She's a rock in the family, but I think this is the right time for her to call it quits.
Yeah. And what will probably happen is she'll go back to the southeast of Asia again and just live there. And we'll just hear about her occasionally on Plat Chat.
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about, Plat Chat, because who do you think's keeping Plat Chat together? It's no David. It's Gail.
Yes. Well, Jack P. Shepherd is currently in Africa on safari, misgendering lions. So
Nice. No, Gail has been omnipresent as far as I've ever watched Coronation Street. You know, she, I think I was just turning 1 when she started work on it, which feels like a ridiculous length of time to work on something.
yeah,
And yeah, she's been at the centre of so many iconic storylines. You got Richard Hillman and her feud with Eileen and stuff, the body under the annex. It's going to be sad to think of the show with her not in it, because very few of us will have ever experienced that.
yeah,
But like I said, she deserves some retirement,
yes.
some leisure time. And I think she commutes from London.
What?
Who can be fucking bothered with that?
I mean, David Nielsen commutes from Spain, so I guess she doesn't have the longest commute.
No, well, maybe. I mean, I wonder if David Nielsen gets to Manchester quicker from Spain than she does from London. And I assume that David Nielsen stays in the UK for a few days at a time before going back to Spain. He's not flying backwards and forwards every day.
Yeah, unless he's got a helicopter, which apparently are very easy to buy.
Seemingly.
If you'd like more information on that, please listen to our latest episode of the List of Lists podcast.
But yeah, I thank you for your service, and congratulations on so many wonderful moments, Helen
Yes,
Worth.
yes,
A
absolutely.
legend. If the word legend is overused, it's certainly not in her case.
Absolutely true. Condolences to the family of Rob Burrow, the former rugby player who was a consultant on Paul's storyline, who lost his own battle with MND this past week. It is very sad. He did an awful lot of help and work for research and everything for the disease, as well as consulting with Coronation Street.
Yeah, it's I guess an inevitable end, but
Right.
you know, an absolute line as far as rugby league's concerned, and
Very much so.
and I think just the kind of living example of what the stories that Paul's involved in is trying to do, just
Yeah.
show it striking in some cases, I guess, the last person you would imagine being susceptible to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
A real shame, just such a horrible, evil disease
Yes.
to hit someone so young.
Right. Yeah. He was only 41.
I know.
And just seeing the pictures of his life as a rugby player and his life towards the end of life, it really hits home how devastating this disease is.
Yeah.
Very, very sad. And finally, we're gonna bring the mood up a little bit from
Okay, good.
from the sadness. No DIY projects for our dev, as Jimmy Harkishin is banned from the Manchester B&Q for allegedly stealing paint. Jimmy is appealing the decision. According to him, it was a tin of paint that he bought elsewhere that he was just carrying around with himself, that he didn't leave in the car or whatever for some reason. I don't know. It apparently the B&Q employees were very proud that they didn't give him any special service because he's a celebrity. They treated him like everyone else and locked him in a room for 10 to 15 minutes to
While they waited
question
for the
him
police, yep.
and all this other stuff. But apparently, many, many years ago, he was caught popping tags in a shop trying to get a 60-pound sweater for like 30 pounds and was caught as well. So who knows?
Was he convicted of that?
I believe so. And he had to leave the show for a while, or he chose to leave the show for a while. Him and Winona Ryder, man. The two of them, 2 peas in a pod.
2 ping pong balls on a ping pong ball table.
We love you, Jimmy. And that's Corrie News.
Was it a full tin of paint? I think I read that it was tester pots, which seems more likely that you'd be walking round about another store with a little tester pot of paint rather than a
Right.
big 2 litre.
Right, yeah, to
5
maybe
litre.
see if you could find the same shade cheaper or something.
Yeah, that checks out a little bit more than
Yeah.
actually carrying the full tin in another store. Really.
Right. Yeah.
Because that sounds very suspicious, put like that.
Right. Yeah.
Our lawyers advise us to
Not speculate any
stop
further.
talking about this now.
Yes.
So
And that's Corrie News.
So we'll stop talking. That's Corrie News. We will stop doing that, and we will move on to a section where no allegations are going to get thrown about willy-nilly. It's the feedback section that I like to call Everyone's a Critic.
And I call Christmas on Mars.
John wrote in this week, totally agree that it was a really well done week on Coronation Street, talking about last week. And the whole thing seemed tighter with 5 half-hour episodes, didn't it, Justin? Didn't it seem like a bit of an effort to go back to the 1-hour episodes this week?
Yes.
My initial speculation was, is Kit in cahoots with Joel? But I'm now veering towards Nikki as some sort of recruiter for a nasty ring of sex abusers. Nikki would be fantastic if Hope is the one who brings them all down. Yeah, I think we can all agree on that, John.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Then Mark writes in, I resent the insinuation that I am a pedant who is only inspired to write to point out inaccuracies in your usually adequate podcast.
Adequate? Ouch!
In an unrelated matter, it was Sabrina that Bobby, Simon and racist Kelly hung out with at the bistro, and not, as you may have suggested, Amy. I bid you good day, sir. Thank you very much, Mark. I see what you did there.
Did you suggest it was Amy?
Yeah. I couldn't remember who the other person was, so I just jumped with Amy.
Oh, and I didn't catch you.
And it wasn't.
Typically, I catch you with things like that, and I didn't.
It was Sabrina.
I apologize.
No, normally you catch me with pronouns.
Well, there's that too.
Yes. In real life and on the podcast. Then Daisy writes, on my way on holidays and can't wait to watch you in blazing heat. Swain's leather jacket with the shoulder pads was too much last week. Roy not shaving has caused me mental stress. My partner calls Tyrone blockhead. Yeah, I can see why. Bye-bye, Simon. Leanne, why don't you leave too? Oh, the
Ouch.
scalding stuff that is getting thrown Leanne's way this week. Thank you, Daisy. Then Wendy writes, well, Wendy says something that I'm just going to skip over for now, but then goes on to say, I'm having a feeling that the stories have been so disjointed lately, it seems that they aren't even planned out, making it up as they're going along. No real satisfaction to be had if Joel gets caught. We all really don't care about Lauren and Roy is out, so what? Dee Dee is going to kick ass in the end anyway. Toya must have forgotten about her hippie cop ex-boyfriend who would probably be interested in investigating the Rowan cult. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point, Wendy.
Yeah. Especially since Griff came back, I was like, Spider surely is coming back as well, right? Right? We're getting Spider back, maybe? Maybe?
He left to become a bigger cop or something, didn't he? Another undercover assignment was coming his way, I think.
Right.
So he didn't leave the country or anything.
Why can't it be an undercover situation within the Institute? Mm-hmm. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I think Wendy stumbled on something pertinent there.
Yes.
And yeah, also about the Joel thing, the Joel getting caught. This is a show doing what it always does. Introduces a character and makes them the baddie. I guess Stephen was a little different because he had some history with the show, but normally it's introduce a character, let them get their feet under the table a little bit, and then they become a huge villain.
Right.
So Joel kind of fits that. Anyway, feedback is always welcome. Send us your thoughts and I will probably read them out. Get us at thetalkofthestreet@gmail.com. DMs are open at Corrie Podcast. Please note that we reserve the right to edit feedback, but only in the interests of brevity. And if you miss out a word, I'm going to take a good old guess at what that word is. So apologies if I get it wrong. And now we'll podcast for coffee. I'm going to hit this button, Helen. You watching?
I am.
Friend of the podcast.
We have a new friend of the podcast. Welcome aboard, Russell Fighting, who signed up on the Patreon.
Oh, thank you so much, Russell.
I'm going to hit this button again. You watching?
I am.
Friend of the podcast.
And we have another new friend of the podcast.
What? See, Patreon was a good idea.
Welcome aboard Jackie B on the Patreon. Yeah, so
Holy crap.
turns out maybe switching that Patreon thing on was a decent
good
idea.
idea. Yes.
So we are doubly blessed with two new friends of the podcast. Come in, settle yourselves down. You are more than welcome. Russell Fighting and Jackie B, thank you so much for signing up to be friends of the podcast. We really appreciate it. The Talk of the Street is and will always be free on your podcast provider and on the YouTubes. But if you think our show is worth anything more than the time it takes to listen to it, and if you want to show your appreciation, you can buy us next week's coffee by going to ko-fi.com. That's ko-fi.com/the Talk of the Street. You can also sign up to be a friend of the podcast through the same link, where for as little as $2 a month, you can get a mention in the closing credits of each and every episode. And we now have a Patreon site where you can also show us some love and sign up as a friend of the podcast at patreon.com/the Talk of the Street, which is what Russell Fighting and Jackie B did this week.
Yes.
And made me press this button.
Yes.
So you sign up, I'm going to press that button.
Should we press it for all of the others who became friends before we got a button?
I don't want to press this another 13 times. So
Okay.
let me just press it once.
Well, maybe at the end before you say thank you to our friends of the podcast, and then you can play that and then say their names.
I'll forget. I'm just going to press it now. That's one time just for all the others.
Yes.
Friend of the podcast.
Where did you get that voice?
It's AI generated. Now, if that voice sounds familiar to you and you're a Twitter follower, that's the man's voice that I use when I'm recreating the other side of phone calls.
It almost sounds like Rhys Darby has a podcast about cryptids called The Cryptid Factor. And that almost sounds like the voice that they have that says, The Cryptid Factor with Rhys Darby and the other guy and Buttons. I can't remember the middle guy's name, but I remember Buttons.
Yeah, AI generated.
Ah.
And remember, you can always support the podcast for free and get us in front of new listeners by liking, subscribing, rating and reviewing wherever you get your podcasts. Shall we dive in, my dear?
Y'all, please.
Our first storyline tonight is Killy Joel. Not Billy Joel.
Yeah.
Or
Who you
Billy,
hate.
Or Billy Joel if you're Scottish. This is Killy Joel.
Is this because you hate Billy Joel so much that you want to associate him with a psycho pedophile murderer?
I've checked my notes and Davey is still in the Navy.
Ah,
And probably will be for life.
right, because he's gay.
On Monday, we're back to full hours and Joel has started off the week buying Dee Dee flowers and with a request for her to meet his parents for lunch at the bistro tomorrow.
Only fair. He's met her dad. He'll never meet her mother.
Oh, too soon? Yeah,
It will always be too soon.
She's nervous, but he insists that she'll be a hit. A veritable hit. He gets a warning text and rushes off, and in his car he speaks to Ellie, who grasses up that Bethany has been texting her. Joel warns her to stay clear. Meanwhile, Bethany is desperate to try to talk to Ellie into speaking to the police again and thinks maybe grassing Ellie's story to the cops is the way to go. Yeah, that's unethical much.
Just a wee bit.
Yeah. She goes to sit in the community garden and speaks to a passing PC tinker. She's worried that Nathan will get off, and she tells him about Ellie and gives him Ellie's address, which, yeah, this is kind of creepy, Bethany. Saying that she previously has been abused by Nathan, which she wasn't. Meanwhile, Joel goes to see Nathan and tries to talk him into pleading guilty. Nathan's surprisingly still not keen on this approach, primarily because he didn't do it. Joel thinks it doesn't matter. No jury in the land is going to set him free.
That is true.
Well, based on the false evidence, yeah.
Right.
Later, having lunch in the flat, there's a series of events involving ketchup, eggs, Joel's second best tie, and Dee Dee's hairdryer.
And SpaghettiOs on top, and with eggs on top, and then ketchup on top of the eggs and the SpaghettiOs. So what are we supposed to, is this implying that she learned how to be a bad cook from her mum?
She said something along those lines that
they used to use ketchup because their mum's
to cover
food
up.
was so bad.
Mm-hmm. And I'm like, God, Aggie's essentially left the show and she's still getting shit for her bad cooking.
Right, yeah. And now they're trying to make it as if Dee Dee can't cook either, which is fucked up.
Yeah. So he's away getting himself cleaned up, and she answers his ringing phone, which nobody does.
No.
That's what voicemail's for.
Right.
And she is appalled to learn who it is that's calling. When Joel comes back into the room, Dee Dee confronts him that Nathan was on the phone. So Joel has to explain to Dee Dee that they both have to represent people that they don't like sometimes. But Dee Dee thinks that Bethany being a neighbour makes this too much of a conflict of interest. So she goes off to tell PC Tinker. Does she?
No. Why would she tell PC Tinker?
I think that's supposed to be a joke, but I can't remember why. They take the argument to Neil's roles where Bethany overhears that Joel will be representing Nathan. So now Joel has to hear all the same old shit from Bethany and Sarah. So,
And then Sarah says that the cops are going to go see Ellie. And yes, okay, fine. She doesn't know that Joel is actually Ellie's tormentor. But still, this is not information for everybody. You should have even told the cops about Ellie. And now you're just telling a stranger who's representing Nathan.
right. So Joel has to throw them a line about Nathan being unlikely to get off. Sarah thinks this and Tinker's statement from Ellie should seal the deal. And Joel shits himself a wee bit. It's because Tinker's gone to see Ellie at her house and speaks to her housemate, who explains that Ellie has left and has been very distressed recently, which Craig writes down in his little book.
Write it down in your little book.
On the other side of town, Joel deletes Ellie's number from his phone. He goes and apologises to Bethany for making her feel uncomfortable. PC Tinker arrives and tells both of them that Ellie has left town and goes to apologise to Dee Dee for not being upfront, and she accepts that he may have clients that she doesn't approve of. So they make up just in time for meeting his fucking folks tomorrow.
Now, Joel has Ellie in his phone under her real name
Ellie.
and real last name.
Oh no, it's just her first name.
No, it's her last name as well.
It isn't.
Yeah, it is.
It isn't.
Yeah, it is.
It isn't.
I was watching.
So was I.
It starts with an S. It's like Ellie Staunton or something. Go back and look it up. Why, if you're a villain and you're tormenting young women, would you have them under their real names
I'm not sure
in
why.
your phone? Why don't you have a burner phone for
Exactly.
contacting them?
This is what burner phones are invented for.
Yeah.
For goodness sake.
This just proves to me that he will be very easy to catch. Did you see him watching? There was a clip of him watching the episode that we find out he's the villain with his grandmother. And she gives him shit for it. And
Yep.
it's hilarious.
Yeah.
She looks over at him like, who are you really?
He said in an interview that he had to kind of apologise to his family for
Right.
for this. And you think, okay, he's just saying that because it sounds like a good thing to tell the press.
No, but it was true.
Seriously, it looks
It
like
was
it was
true.
totally true.
His grandmother was like scooching away from him.
Oh, can you imagine being the granny of the guy that made that noise?
No.
Oh,
No, thank you.
oh, very, very unpleasant. But it shocks me how many times a defence lawyer has to explain what a defence lawyer does to people. I guess people, just regular folk on the street, but also to other lawyers like Dee Dee, who knows what a defence lawyer does.
Right, but she is also right that there are some cases that you just don't take because they are too close.
But she misses the vital part of this, which isn't the fact that he's too close to it. It's the fact that he was representing him as the duty solicitor, which is
Right.
one thing, but then continuing to represent them
Right.
afterwards, which is far more suspicious because that's him making a choice to do that.
Right. Because he's like, I was the one on duty. And she says, yeah, but you could have dropped him afterwards and you didn't. This is why she's mad, because she recognizes that he was on duty, but afterwards he should have dropped him. And she had assumed that he had.
On Wednesday, Dee Dee is hectic ahead of her meeting with Joel's parents, who he warns can be a little bit standoffish. That's exactly the sort of thing that you want to hear before this meeting. Is
Seriously.
these people are assholes.
Right. Yes.
Excellent. Well, I can't wait.
My white parents are very standoffish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're going to hate you.
Yeah.
So he heads off for another meeting with Nathan in the jail. in the meeting, Nathan has decided that pleading guilty for something that he didn't do isn't really the way to go. So he's dropped Nathan in favour of a proper lawyer. And Joel shits his pants a wee bit again. Back in the street, as a result of this, Sarah is dragged into the cop shop for more questions, which Joel sees, and once more, his unders are soiled.
Which is it, and it's so weird because it's not Swain who brings her in, and it's not Kit. It's some other rando who we've never seen before. And it's like, we know the detectives on this case. This is not one of the detectives on this case. Who is this guy?
So he turns up late to the bistro lunch where Dee Dee is already struggling to find a connection with Joel's mum. Would you like still or sparkling water? And his mum wants tap water.
Which would be still water, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That's
she doesn't
what's
want to
still
pay
water.
for it. She doesn't want a bottle of still water. She wants literally water from the tap so she doesn't have to pay for it.
Right, but that's still, they don't buy still water. They fill it from the tap.
Well,
and then bring it in a bottle to your table.
Well, that's a scam. Stop telling restaurant secrets.
Who pays for still water? Nobody pays for still water, do they?
Every time you ask for
sparkling.
water and I go and get you a bottle of Aquafina, I have to pay for that.
Right, yeah. If the bottle is Aquafina, but that's different from a restaurant who fills it from the tap.
You're telling secrets of restaurants out here. So, Joel's dad is oddly quiet during all this, but is impressed that Dee Dee used to work in LA. Joel's mum says, what went wrong that you end up in a shitty little backstreet lawyer's office then? And starts going on about how Joel always gets his head turned by women and how Emily was a real catch. At the bar, Joel gets chatting with Sarah. He says he's dropped Nathan as a client and offers his advice on the down low. He really shouldn't be doing this because he's used to be Nathan's brief,
Right.
and now isn't, so now he's remembering that he's a bit too close to it. She's very appreciative of this. Then Ronnie and Ed come in. Ronnie's in this week.
Yay, Ronnie and Debbie.
Yep.
I'm so glad.
And Joel's mum is immediately turned off by Ed's appearance and profession and thinks Dee Dee comes from muck. Dee Dee tells her to suck on her swinging hairy balls and storms off. So it's his mum's fault that he's a murdering psychopath, I think is what the show's trying to tell us. Well done, women, ruining innocent men again.
Right, by babying them and thinking that no woman is good enough for them.
Joel follows her back to the flat and tries to make things better by proposing marriage.
He's hilarious because, like, he comes in and he's like, I've been looking all over for you. Where were you? Were you here the whole time? And it's like, if you're looking for someone, maybe their house is the first place you check. Where else did you check?
Where else did he check?
Who knows? Was he in that field where Stephen burned Sinkhole Leo's pants? Was he in the alleyway where Stephen threw a recycling bin? Was he in the little...
I'm very much enjoying you naming incidental locations here. Please continue.
Was he in that little... What are those things called? The little, like, brick walkway things?
The Ginnel?
Yes. Was he in the Ginnel where Stephen attacked the kids that he was trying to buy LSD from?
Oh, that was a precinct.
Yeah, but it was a Ginnel in the precinct.
I guess it was a Ginnel.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when a Ginnel becomes an alleyway.
I think it's a Ginnel because it's enclosed. Alleyways are open.
Oh, well, the Ginnel wouldn't be a Ginnel then. Because a Ginnel's what runs between the houses, the back of the houses.
Yeah, that's not what I was talking about. I was talking about those little enclosed little tubey things from, like, medieval times, I'm assuming. Did he check the junkyard where Stephen beamed Tim over the head and dragged him into the trunk? Did he check the soccer field where Gary buried Rick the Chin?
Oh.
Okay. Did he check the basement?
Do you know, I think I've created a monster.
Where the water ran and a gun floated out? Did he check Nick's apartment where Harvey shot and killed Natasha?
You know, I'm only letting this run so I can get the clip of the...
Yeah, and there's her name.
Yeah, and this only says Ellie.
No, it's got a last name. There's
Where?
2 names there. I thought it started with an S. It looks like it starts with a B,
It
but
starts
it's
with
a
B.
last
It is
name.
there. I will concede that.
So go fuck yourself. Yeah, he's got an Ellie without a last name, who I
Yeah.
guess is like another lawyer in his office. And then an Ellie with the last name, and that's the girl he's torturing and committing crimes against.
That's going to be confusing. What if you call the wrong one?
I imagine that's happened before.
So he's proposing marriage while Dee Dee tries to retreat into a wall a la Homer Simpson.
Yes, which was hilarious.
This'll be a no for now, she says, but thanks ever so much. Joel is disappointed that they're not in the same place and his mum's snobbishness hasn't put her in a romantic mood, and he looks like he's eager to kill again. Meanwhile, Sarah catches Bethany up with all this and is immediately suspicious of Joel's offer of advice. Ellie has contacted Joel asking for more money, and he meets her and tells her to go out and earn it. And then he looks down at his crotch and says, "Go on then." And I was like, oh my God, is he trying to get a blowy off her? And then he throws her out of the car. So, oh my God, this is awful. Dee Dee goes to speak to Ed and Michael about this. Michael thinks that she should trust her gut, but Ed thinks, yeah, he seems like a nice guy and is maybe worth a shot. So she listens to her dad, meets Joel and the Rovers and changes her mind. She will marry him after all. As they celebrate, Bethany whispers to Sarah there's something about that prick that she just doesn't trust. Her spidey senses are a-tingling.
And Sarah says, whatever, Bethany.
Yeah, whatever.
What? First, Ed says, I shouldn't be giving you romantic advice because your mother has left me.
Michael, no!
And then proceeds to give her
Terrible advice.
He probably would have told Amy Winehouse not to go to rehab as well as
Amy, no!
as her terrible, terrible real life father.
No, that's her lawyers on the phone again. On Friday, Bethany meets Daisy in Nina's Rolls. Bethany is going through old mail in public and comes across a dodgy company credit card bill. She hasn't been using that card in months because she should have handed it in when she left.
Right, yeah, she still has it though. That's the weird thing.
So it's fraud, I tell you. Yeah, fraud from you. In the pub later, she tells Daisy, who didn't ask, that her old company demand proof that she didn't make the purchases. That's a strange thing to ask for. How do I prove that I didn't buy something? Daisy says that asking for receipts so she can say that she was somewhere else at the time is probably the way to go. And then Joel somehow ends up speaking to Bethany about the credit card stuff and advises her to go through her statements. Daisy thinks he's sweet. Bethany still isn't impressed. And that's as far as we get with that this week. How's Joel settling as a baddie for you?
You know, I think it works.
I think it works as well.
Yeah, I'm down with it. He's very creepy, and yet he can turn on the charm and be not creepy as well, which for us is creepy because we know he's creepy. Mm-hmm. Nobody else knows he's creepy, though.
Yeah, when he's with regular characters, he's not behaving any differently than how he would normally,
Right.
which is slightly off
And terrifying.
as the way that he behaves. Like
Right.
asking Dee Dee to marry him, for example, is weird.
Yeah, right after, you know, she stormed out of meeting his parents for the first time. It's like, why are you asking me now? Mm-hmm. Is this about me or is it about your mother?
Well, that's a very good question, Helen.
Yes.
And I would suggest it's more about our mother,
Yeah.
his mother, than it's about Dee Dee.
Right.
But I'm glad that he isn't slicking his hair back.
Yeah. Or sticking out his tongue.
I'm glad he did that one time, and I'm glad that hasn't become a thing, because when he was with Ellie in the car, he looked like he was about to slick his hair back.
No. Instead, he suggested a blowy.
Presumably that. Did you see that?
I did.
I found that quite surprising for Coronation Street.
Well, let's not forget that one humorous time where a police officer thought that Evelyn was giving Roy a blowy in the Woody.
Yeah, that was
suggested,
comically though.
Right, but they're not above a blowjob, is what I'm saying.
Well, who amongst us isn't? But
Well,
I guess they did it in a way that if you don't know or you didn't spot what he was doing, you're not going to notice it.
Right.
So I guess it was kind of a slick way of getting in. But when you see it, it's very... Took me by surprise, but I didn't really expect it to be that blunt about it. But, yeah.
At least he wasn't zipping down his pants or anything.
At least there was no sound effect of him unzipping his trousers. Yep. I thought was it Monday then? I thought that he'd killed Ellie.
I thought so too. But he wouldn't have had time. He didn't have time to kill her. Especially since her roommate was home.
Wonder what she needed the money for.
To get away.
She didn't look like she was on drugs.
No. She needed a place to sleep and food.
She was a good wee actor.
Yes.
I'm kind of disappointed that the suggestion is that we won't see very much of her again because she was pretty good.
Yes, she was. Do you think Joel has killed before?
I think the suggestion is from the show that he has.
Yeah.
But looking at the way that he reacted after pummeling racist Kelly's head in with the chair leg, it looked maybe like it was his first time.
No, he seems so cool.
Do you think? I thought he was very agitated after it.
No, he slicked back his hair, took a deep breath, and strolled out with a necklace.
Yeah, maybe.
Do you think he'll kill again?
Sure, he has to.
Yeah.
I think he's got his eye on killing a few people at the moment. He's potentially...
There's Ellie.
There's Bethany.
And there's Hope.
And eventually Hope. Hope was maybe a little bit on the young side to kill. But if it's about his freedom, then...
Right, yeah. And she is the one who found the necklace that can tie him to everything.
Right.
And he did have a very sinister look on his face watching her walk away.
He really did. Yeah. There are a few people that are that he's got his sights on. Certainly, I would assume that he's going to have to at least try to strike again. Because whatever it is that he's involved in, and I really like the suggestion that there are other characters that we know in on this. I don't know if I agree that it's Nikki.
Or Kit.
But the more that I think about Nikki's behaviour in all this...
No, she was acting absolutely like an advocate would. There's nothing suspicious about how
even
Nikki...
by going round and speaking to Daniel first before she met the Ellie character, and then, there was things that she was doing that were kind of out of place.
She knew Ellie before because Ellie was coming to the support group or whatever it is. I do not see anything suspicious in Nikki's behavior. Of course, I don't really see anything hugely suspicious in Kit except for planting the hair. But he could be doing that for a number of reasons because we don't really know this character very well yet.
Nathan dumping Joel for someone else does put this in quite a lot of jeopardy, and maybe the thing that spurs Joel on to kill again, because obviously the hair was planted,
right?
Not by Sarah though.
No,
but it was false evidence.
Right. But the USB drives are not false evidence.
But if that case is thrown out, then the whole question is
yeah, they're all back to square one about what happened to
absolutely what happened to Racist Kelly. So this hair could put us all back to square one again. And what does that mean? That Roy goes back to jail?
No, they would not put Roy back in jail. That's maybe Daniel.
Well, the whole reason that he's out is because of this hair. I don't know. No. An awful lot relies on this evidence, and Sarah getting questioned over it, especially when the truth of the matter is she was hanging about with this intention.
Right.
It's going to make her look very dodgy.
But the fact that we don't get to hear this interview makes me feel like the existence of the interview is the important thing and not what was said in it.
Well, how
which makes
often...
it seem like like this is just a nothing burger to scare Joel more than anything.
I don't think so. I think there's serious jeopardy here for Sarah. We don't see an awful lot of the interviews anyway. We only see the kind of highlights of it because it's not a police procedural and nobody really wants to see half an hour worth of Sarah getting questioned.
It's kind of become a police procedural, hasn't it?
More than it has in the past, certainly. But it happens all the time. People get let go. The number of times Daniel got taken in and just got let go immediately afterwards.
Right, but we get to hear those interviews with Daniel.
I don't know. I think she's in potentially pretty deep water here. All right, let's move on to the next story, which is Videodrone. On Monday, Abby's deep fake porn thing is still a thing. Kev wants to take her out for the day to take her mind off it, but she's damned if she's going to let them win, whoever they is. At work, Cassie wastes no time getting stuck into Abby about having her fine china spread all over the internet, but it's not my china, they aren't my bits. PC Tinker comes along to tell him that they're no further forward thanks to a VPN, and he suggests hiring a lawyer. Great stuff.
It's very interesting, the show mentioning a VPN.
Yeah. I wouldn't know anything about that. Later, Abby is skinnered that there's nothing that the police can do, and they can't afford a lawyer. But then 2 lads come in and take her photo after enjoying her performance in the deep fake video, which just seems very unlikely.
Yeah. Hey, are you that chick from the video that's going around online? And they've got their takeaway from the chippy as well.
They've got their chips.
It's like, are they bringing offerings to her because they're so pleased with the way they got off on the deepfake videos? But no, that's their lunch. They just decided to bring it with them while they searched the streets for this woman who they saw have sex on the internet.
Is that what their suggestion happened? It kind of felt like it was.
Yeah.
Because you don't just walk by a backstreet garage and say, wait a minute, I saw a video the other day and that woman looks very much like the woman I saw in that video.
Yeah. I want to get her autograph. On my penis.
Kev thinks they need to get these videos off the internet and put all of this to the back of their minds, but Abby can't see a bright side in any of this. She goes to the cafe and speaks to Nina, and Nina remembers that Asha had a revenge porn story, so puts her on to her to speak to. Asha had pretty much forgotten all about it, but thinks that her case is different because she knew who did it, and Abby clearly doesn't know who did it.
No, but Abby still gets the number of the company that Dev paid all that money to.
Yeah.
To wipe Asha's boobs off the internet.
Wipe. Back at the garage, Cassie is explaining to Tyrone why she thinks that the deep fake isn't fake at all. Abby and Kev walk in at this point and overhear it. Kev, it turns out, has, like the rest of us, noticed how much of a cow Cassie has been lately. And I was like, really? Kev noticed this? Because he never looks like he noticed it.
Right, yeah.
Cassie laughs off the accusations and insinuation that she fancies Kev, but Kev's heard enough and sacks her, and Tyrone backs him up.
Yeah.
You really have been a horrible fucking cow, Mum, says Ty.
Yeah. And like, her reasoning is so silly because she's like, well, she's not some celebrity. And it's like, you do understand, why would someone do this to her? Because it's not like she's famous.
Right.
And it's like, people do this sort of thing all the time. It's called revenge porn for a reason. Mm-hmm. It's something that people do when they want to get back at someone. And so they stick their head on another body and plaster it all over to ruin that person's reputation. Mm-hmm. And also, they pointed out about the fact that the body has a tattoo that Abby doesn't have.
Yeah, that big anchor that's on the leg.
Right. And it's like...
A tin of spinach on the bicep.
So it's obviously not Abby, and like the way that she's insinuating, well, maybe it is. Maybe she does have a tattoo. No, she doesn't have a tattoo. Don't be stupid. It's like, cut your losses.
Yeah, seriously. So on Wednesday, Abby is cleaning the nest ahead of the twins, Abbott and Costello, arriving for their visit. But it's all for now, because at the last minute, the twins' new mum calls to cancel, saying that one of the twins, it doesn't matter which one, has the chicken pox. Abby sees through this and thinks it's because everyone has seen her mucky videos. All right, so I guess I understand that she thinks that everyone has seen this.
Right.
But it still feels very unlikely unless the person who has these videos has like hacked her Facebook and posted the videos there or something.
It was posted under her little speech on the Weather Gazette.
But then was quickly taken down.
Right. But it was seen by a number of people there before it was quickly taken down.
I suppose.
You know? And it was probably posted in a number of other well-known places before quickly being taken down. That's the problem.
But it has to be attached to her. Because no one is looking up Abby Webster porn. Nobody's looking for that.
Except maybe Kev.
Occasionally, right?
And Peter.
My friend Andy.
Rule 34 is there for a reason.
Rule 34?
Rule 34? You've never heard of Rule 34?
No.
Rule 34 is the rule that if anything can be made into porn. Whenever there's a big movie, almost immediately there's a porn satire.
Yeah.
You know, saving Ryan's privates.
Mm-hmm. Or Shaving Private Ryan, if you prefer.
Yes. As an example. And how, like, practically every cartoon that's ever been made has cartoon
Once
porn.
again, our lawyers are insisting that we move on. But I guess what I'm saying is the twins' new mum is unlikely to have been searching for porn of Abby.
Especially if they've just gotten back from Australia.
Right.
Because she wasn't looking at that in Australia. But it's possible somebody in the neighborhood told her about it or something.
The thing is, the way the internet works on Coronation Street is different from how the internet works
in real life.
Everywhere
Yes.
else. Yeah. Yes. So Kev gets the expert in, Mr. Ball.
Yikes.
He's the guy who helped Dev. He wants $5,000 a month to keep her deep fakes out of the search engine results. He's a fucking crook. That's what he is. Kev pretends that he has a spare $60,000 a year kicking about his bank account and tells her that he'll pay it. Don't be so fucking wet, says Abby. Debbie suggests going to the Rovers to get her mind off. Debbie suggests going to the Rovers to mull over their options.
Right, because Debbie's back.
Debbie's back, hooray. Once there, Debbie gets Abby's mind taken over by talking about CCTV and forensics and wondering why the police can't be more helpful. Abby goes home with some clarity, thinking the police don't care because she's a junkie, and suggests hiring a PI. And Kevin is relieved because Abby's got her fight back.
Yes. Let's hire a PI, find out who it is, and then go beat the fuck out of them.
Right. Sounds like a plan.
Yes.
On Friday, Cassie's in Nina's roads with Evelyn badmouthing Abby and claiming she didn't want her whole loaf of Kev after all. Tyrone calls pish on this and tells her to knock it off and she should try to make up for all this by apologising and maybe she'll get her job back. Who knows? Good luck with that, says Evelyn. Meanwhile, Maria speaks to Abby about her own deep fake nightmare from a couple of years ago. So here's the show this week.
Bravo show for remembering that you've done this twice already.
Cassie and Evelyn come in and Cassie immediately throws the evils at Kev and Abby, which Maria immediately notices. Cassie goes over and she does her apology routine. She admits to wanting what she can't have. Evelyn overhears this and tells Tyrone it's a load of old pish. She's just turning it on for the audience. After the apology, Cassie's less humble and thinks Kev and Abby are full of shit. Ty sticks to his guns though, and she's still sacked. And that's as far as we get with that this week.
Yes.
I kind of felt sorry for Jack and all this, because Jack was the one who was really looking forward to seeing his brother and sister. Or brother and brother.
No, brother and sister.
Well, it was brother and sister.
Yeah. That I don't think he's ever seen before. Because Kev and Abby weren't together when Abby lost the twins.
He didn't hang about though. He just came in and said, oh, that's a shame.
It was really weird.
Hi, Auntie Debbie, and then left.
It was really weird. Well, she gives him money, so of course he's left.
Right.
It's really weird how this storyline starts this week with Abby sitting at the computer and Kev is on this side and Jack is on this side and we can't see their heads for most of the scene.
Right.
We hear them talking, but we don't see their faces or their physical heads.
It's like Kit's in the shot again. Big Al. There's something in your mouth, Al. I don't know how interested I am in this anymore.
Because we've done this story already twice.
Well, exactly. And the
And
show
the
reminded
show
us of it.
Reminded us that it had already done it twice.
Cassie, I think we're getting her true colours coming out a little bit this week.
She's a bitch.
She really is a bitch. They started her off this way, and then they softened her a little bit, and they made her make up with Evelyn and stuff, and she looked like she was being a good member of the household and what have you, and she was becoming a good employee again, and then they remembered that she had a thing for Kev, and since they remembered that, yeah, it's all been downhill for her character. And this week, she really
Why,
is
Kev?
just awful.
Why? This is the thing that gets to me, because she turned down Steve. And yet she wants to get into Kev's pants. If I had my choice between Steve and Kev...
Now be careful, I'm sitting right here.
Right. If you magically didn't exist for a day and I had my choice between Kev
It would
and
take
Steve...
a day.
Yeah, because I wouldn't want to be permanently with either one of them. I would go Steve all the way. Wouldn't you?
If it's
the choice-
Steve, Kev, or Death, then it would be Steve, sure.
Yeah. Well, death is not an option. Steve is nicer to women.
Well, from time to time.
He bathes. And he's funny.
And he occasionally shaves.
And he's younger.
You'd have to put up with those haircuts every now and again, though. But I guess you're talking about one day, it doesn't really matter.
Right, yeah. And also, you get Tim as a bonus prize. And who doesn't want that?
Yeah. I mean, you explain it like this, and it's just madness to think otherwise, I guess.
Right? Does Cassie just like unwashed men?
She doesn't look like she washes that often herself. Let's be honest.
Okay, fine.
I imagine there's some aroma coming from those overalls. Ugh. I think we better move on.
Yes.
To Bobby's missing earbuds. It's a new exciting storyline.
Bobby is missing his earbuds.
On Monday, Daniel's suspension at the young offenders thing has officially been lifted, which surprises Carla a bit. The two of them make tentative arrangements to celebrate with the rest of the family in the pub, once Simon's fucked off in another storyline.
Right, yes. This is Simon's leaving due.
Bobby's also invited. Later in the law office, Dee Dee almost lets slip to Adam about Carla and Bobby's antics regarding Roy and Daniel, but catches herself. Adam, though, refuses to let it go, so Dee Dee spills, saying, "You can't say this to anybody."
Right, yeah. Which he immediately, what does he do? What does he do, Gav?
So in the pub, after they've all managed to bundle Simon into the back of a black cab, Adam confronts Carla and Bobby in front of everyone, saying how they concocted a story that ended up throwing Daniel under the bus and suspected of racist Kelly's disappearance, and almost got done for perverting the course of justice.
Yeah, but let's all remember, they didn't purposefully throw Daniel under the bus here.
They didn't say Daniel done it.
No, they didn't say Daniel did it at all.
Although I think Max was coming
police-
very close to convincing Bobby.
The police made that connection themselves.
So Daniel's got his arm on the top of the booth chair.
Right.
Going, "Oh no, Carla, what have you done now?" And then when he realises that it affected him, he's fucking furious.
Right, yeah.
And it is hilarious.
Yeah. It's like, how dare you do something that affects me negatively?
Yeah.
I am so perfect and wonderful.
Yeah. Daniel in the barrel was being fucking furious about this. Particularly Daniel was lovely to watch.
And particularly in Daniel's defense, it's like, you guys are something.
He snaps at Carla to stay away from him. "Oh, Carla," says Ken.
Yes.
"Who fucking cares, Carla? You're not a Barlow anymore anyway."
Right. Yeah. And also, you didn't intentionally throw Daniel under the bus.
So on Wednesday, Nina Rolls Bobby is hopeful that all this bother has blown over with the Barlows. But when Adam and Ken come in, they're still pissed with him and pissed with Carla. Realising that he's caused nothing but trouble since he arrived, Bobby tells Carla at home that he'll move back in with his granny. Carla thinks this is a top idea. "Oh, well, I'll just go and pack then," says Bobby. "Remember your earbuds," says Carla. And that's as far as we get with that this week.
I hope Bobby is not really leaving.
Really?
I want Bobby to stay.
I want Bobby to stay, but
Bobby has
I always
grown on
liked him a
me.
little bit more than you did.
Bobby, and we both hated him in the beginning.
No,
No,
I
you
didn't.
You did.
I
you
didn't.
did.
I didn't.
You thought he was a bit much.
It's on the record. I did not. I thought this guy's funny. Just give it some time.
We were both uncomfortable with him making his disability the joke.
I was uncomfortable with that, but overall, I was pro Bobby, and I was a voice in the wilderness on Twitter about this.
We were pro Bobby once he calmed down a little bit and he wasn't doing his stand-up routine.
Right from the start, I was pro Bobby. I just didn't want the disabled gags.
Not that any of this matters, because the Bobby we have now, the Bobby who is part of the whodunit, is very likable and friendly and a misguided but nice guy. And it would be a shame to lose him.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere.
No.
They haven't brought him in just for this. He hasn't really even had his own full storyline yet.
Right, yeah. He kind of had
Been a
this
bit part player in a few of them.
romantic bit in the whole racist Kelly thing. And that's it. And I think he's grown on other people as well. And I think that's good.
I think he's still very much a divisive character. Well, it depends on who you listen to. If you go on forums or Reddit, which I occasionally do, they're very anti-Bobby.
Really?
Yeah.
Because you'd think Reddit would be very much for Bobby.
No, he's not a popular character on there, and he's not a popular character on Digital Spy, although I'm not on Digital Spy very often. But I see some changing of the tide on Twitter.
Mm-hmm. He softens Carla a bit.
Carla needs somebody to talk to. Well,
Yeah.
she'll have Swain, I guess.
Yeah, especially since Simon has left, and Peter has left.
Let's move on then to Roy's messy beard. On Monday, he still hasn't shaved that fucking thing off.
I know.
Sam drops in and Nina's rolls and Asha, cheeky cow, just jumps in front of him. There's a queue here, lady.
Yeah.
Get to the end of it. We just think, yeah, France. Roy has taken the day off and Sam is worried that he's not himself. Nina thinks that he just needs time and invites Sam round later. So later, when Roy gets home from walking Freddy, he's shocked to see Sam sitting in his flat setting up the chessboard.
Right.
Which, to be fair, would give you a little bit of a shock.
Right, yes. And poor Sam, he's like, nobody my own age will play chess with me. Which is weird because he belongs to a chess club of children his own age.
There was the girl. Remember the girl?
Yes, I remember the girl. But then Hope kind of killed that. There's Hope. Play with Hope. She'll cheat and she'll win.
Yes.
But you can still play with her.
Nina explains that she invited him over for a game of chess. Roy, who still hasn't shaved, isn't comfortable with this, but Nina makes him. After some low-level prison chat with Sam, Roy throws the game and sends Sam on his way, and later he explains once again to Nina that after everything that's happened, he can't be seen hanging out with wee boys. This is why he was creepy cropper. He asks her not to do this again, and Nina agrees. On Friday, Stu's in this episode, so the field for boring moment of the week has narrowed. He's up early, unable to sleep, and has bleached tea towels.
And fed the chickens.
There we go. Yasmin is excited to organise something for his birthday, but Stu doesn't want to make a big deal of it, especially with the Roy situation. So Yasmin goes to speak to Ken, and they arrange to have a drink at lunchtime tomorrow, and she asks Ken to lure Roy along. But before this is attempted, Shona tears a strip off Stu and Nina's rolls for the whole Roscoe debacle, and I'm so glad that she did. Because, Stu, this is your fault.
Is it though?
Yes.
Because he was just trying to do something nice. He didn't know Griff was going to be there. And the whole reason why Roscoe helped Griff is because Griff was threatening to murder his grandchild.
This is Stu's fault 100%.
Griff would have gotten to Roy one way or another.
Yeah, and talked him to death. Stu is beside himself, but Yasmin still tries to organise that birthday drink tomorrow. So we've got
Yeah.
that to look forward to on Monday.
Right. Why have they not invited I don't know, Rita and Audrey, who are also old people on the street.
Do they know Stu?
Where's Rita and Audrey? Well, does Ken? How does Ken know Stu?
I think Ken does know Stu. Didn't they share books or something like that before?
Or was it music? Did they bond out? No, Ed and Ken bonded over music.
Somebody was drunk. When they drunk, did Tracy get somebody drunk?
I don't know.
As far as I can make out, the show has two options here. Either stop this with Roy not getting on with poor wee Sam, or make Roy shave. Having both of them together just isn't cutting it for me. One or the other needs to happen.
No, it's all representations of the PTSD that Roy has gone through.
I get that, but
that's not something that's easy to just skate over.
But let's have that represented by one thing. Either not hanging out with Sam or being badly unshaven. That's the two things just is too much for me.
You think PTSD only manifests in one way?
I don't think this is making this an accurate portrayal of PTSD.
Well, it makes it more accurate.
What I'm really
if it's just
saying
one
is
thing.
I very, very much want Roy to shave.
Tough.
And it's annoying me how long that they're refusing to let that man shave.
Fine.
He's got to go about his life like that.
Yeah.
Outside of the show.
Yeah.
Poor David Nielsen. With scraggly beard.
It's fine. He lives in Spain.
What's that got to do with anything?
There are many unkempt men.
No, Helen, that's not an accurate representation of people living in Spain. I'm sorry. It isn't.
It's fine.
So, nobody's turning up to this stupid birthday party for Stu tomorrow.
You don't think anybody's showing up?
I hope not.
I think everybody's showing up.
And
Roy
once again,
and
he's
Stu
just this
will-
rudderless character.
It's fine. What I'm trying to say is, this bothers you a lot. It doesn't bother me at all. This is not Alec Guinness and brown-face levels of bother.
Oh, I didn't notice that bothered you at all. You only mentioned that a million times on our List of Lists podcast, which I encourage you all to listen to. Anyway.
It gets every once in a while, they like to get all of the olds together in one room at one table so they can reminisce and talk about the good old days. And that's what's going to happen.
But Stu's good old days were in prison.
Not necessarily. He wasn't born in prison.
He has nothing to relate to any of these old characters because
They all had similar childhoods in England, in Manchester. It's fine.
Stop saying it's fine.
It's just a boring little storyline to fill time. It should not make you this upset.
My heart sinks every time he comes on the screen.
At least Elsie is gone, or
Eliza. You got her name wrong, but it's fine.
I know it's fine because it's no big deal.
Well, none of this is a big deal. Nothing that we're talking about is a big deal.
You're acting like it's a huge deal.
Well, sure, of course it's fine.
Right.
Of course, none of this is the end of the world.
My opinion is that I don't really care one way or the other, and you just really hate Stu now, and Stu can never be redeemed for you.
No, he's unredeemable. He's just so boring.
Whereas at this point, he's kind of redeemed for me because Eliza's gone.
Fair enough. Let's move on then. Let's see how much of a shit you care about Where There's a Will. Care about that, or is that fine?
Care about this more.
Okay, good. This bodes better then. On Wednesday, George and Todd meet Glenda at Nina's Rolls. She's still pretending to him that she's in the market to buy little big shots, but it's evasive of their questions. George really wants to talk about the finances and contract stuff and all that kind of malarkey, and says that he offers his help to look into any contracts. So, stuff that girls find difficult. Michael pops up when George and Todd leaves, which allows Glenda to remind everyone that she's suing George for the Undertakers. And isn't it interesting that it's Michael again that turns up?
Yes.
Michael advises a rethink. At home, Eileen calls George to get some money sent through for Jason's health insurance. Todd would prefer to let him starve or die from complications from an infection. And the Todd In the pub, Todd tells Glenda about this and George reveals that he paid out of the business account, which seems to twist Glenda's knickers a little bit, and Todd continues to badmouth Jason. George says helping people is the Shuttleworth way. So Glenda tells Michael later about this and thinks that she'll call off the dogs. Maybe she won't sue George after all.
Maybe.
But on Friday, George and Todd are continuing to talk about Will's and Nina's roles. Todd tries to change the subject to Watling's Warehouse, whose owner, Mr. Watlings, has recently pegged it. They're looking to pick up the massive funeral to say cheerio to the old fucker. Meanwhile, Michael is back chatting to Glenda again. Isn't this interesting?
It is.
Michael accidentally deliberately left his phone in the pub last night and Glenda was the one who found it. A likely story. Then Dee Dee comes in to tell Glenda that she's ready to serve George with the letter and thinks that Glenda has a claim on more than the business.
Ooh.
George and Todd are meeting Mrs. Watlings and they're discussing her requirements for a white fridge-shaped coffin and bagpipes. They could use Chesney's massive fridge for that.
They could.
Mrs. Watling knew Archie Shuttleworth and is grateful that George is carrying on the legacy and insists on paying for the funeral in full.
Now.
But before she does that, she has to nip off for a shite. And this allows Dee Dee to come in and serve George with the intent to sue. George's reaction is loud and insulting, which Mrs. W overhears when she comes back into the Undertaker's after her shite.
Right, because he mentions the bagpipes.
And she will now be taking her business elsewhere.
I say good day to you, sir.
Good day.
Good day.
George and Todd go to the Rovers to shout at Glenda until they're thrown out. And George goes to see her in the back room later and apologises for losing his temper. He asks if Glenda really wants a slice of the Undertaker life and is horrified when she says that she's using his money to sue him.
Yeah.
It's my money, she insists.
Right, which it is. He gave it to her.
So pay up or I'll see you in court. And she's also making out that she wants half his house as well. Thank you very much. I'm glad that they remembered the house. George goes to blame Todd and reckons that this is war. Meanwhile, Michael is visiting Glenda again, Helen.
Yes, very interesting.
Glenda explains how little George thinks of her, which Michael can appreciate. They chat about their relationships with her parents, and Michael says that he thinks that she's amazing, and he moves in, and the two of them smooch. Well, I never.
Yes.
And that's as far as we get with that this week.
He tells her she brightens the room whenever she walks into it.
Which is true.
It is true. Very accurate. Well done, Michael.
She mentions the cruise ships this week.
Yes.
I should start a wee collection of times that Glenda mentions the cruise ships. Michael and Glenda together then.
Yes. I'm all for it.
Are we? Are we for it?
I am. I don't fucking care what you think.
Oh, it's fine. I think it's fine.
I've seen a few people question the age gap, but honestly, I don't think there's that much of an age gap. He's in his 30s, and she's late 30s, I guess, or 40s.
Oh, she must be 40s, because George must be in his 50s.
Yeah, but it's not huge.
It's potentially 10 years or more.
Right. But it's not like one of them is 18 and the other one is 50.
Neither one of those people is 18, that's true.
No, yeah. And he's an adult with a child. So, fine.
No, I
like it.
I think they're a fairly cute couple together.
Yeah, I think they'll be deplorable, and I love it.
So let's see. According to Corripedia, Michael Bailey was born sometime around 1990. So he's currently 35-ish, 34, 35. Glenda does not have a date of birth on her page, but Jodie Prenger was born in 1979. So yeah, 11 years. So there's a bit, well, let's say about an 11-year difference, 10-year difference.
Yeah, that's fine at their age.
Yeah, it's. I guess it's a clear difference, but who cares? Especially in this day and age, right? There are far more important things to get worried about than the age gap between a man and a woman.
Right, exactly.
If it was the other way around,
I still don't think that would be a problem.
I don't think so either.
Because look at Kevin Abbey.
Yeah, I would say that's
more than 11 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody's fine with it. Well, I'm not fine with it, but that's not because of their age difference. It's because Kev is a dick.
Right. You're not fine with that.
No, I'm not fine with that.
Yeah, it kind of came as a little bit surprised the way that it sort of happened, because Michael was just, he was her ear for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. And they've been mildly flirting with one another.
They flirted.
Yeah, they were
I don't
flirting.
know how much I noticed.
They were. And they were always together. We kept having scene after scene after scene where it's Michael talking to Glenda about things.
I did think that he was just the assigned character to listen to Glenda talk.
Maybe for the first couple of days, but considering this has been going on for a couple of weeks now, yeah.
Yeah, I think it works. I think it works perfectly well. It maybe gives Michael a little boost in terms of credibility, probably the fact that he's associated with Glenda now. Doesn't do his character any harm.
Yeah. It gives both of them a storyline that's their very own. Michael hasn't really had a storyline of his very own in a while.
Yeah, and I like the fact that the characters have been single for some time. Normally the show can be very quick to make sure that people are coupled up as quickly as possible. Vis-a-vis, Sarah never seems to be allowed to be single or uninterested in anybody for any length of time. She gets thrown from one person to the other.
Yeah.
I still assume that the Kit thing's going to happen at some point, which the height difference would suggest is practically impossible, but I'm sure there's step ladders in Manchester, right? But no, this works quite well. Michael's a nice guy.
He is a nice guy.
A bit dim, but he's a nice guy, and Glenda's good fun.
She is good fun.
Yeah, what's not to love about this? And according to Dee Dee, Glenda's got a fairly decent claim on this half of the Undertakers, which I don't think she's interested in.
And half the house.
But half the house she'd be very interested in.
Yeah. She wouldn't have to live above the Rovers anymore.
He says he's still got 10 years of the mortgage to pay, which kind of surprised me because I was led
because
to
I'd
believe
assumed
that
that
was
was
the
the
dad's
family house. Yeah. If you're paying a mortgage on a house, George, you should be fucking living in it.
Yes.
Or renting it out or something. I'm sure there's still plenty of refugees that need a home now that Daniel has sold his mum's house.
Yeah, how dare George say that Glenda's bad with money when he's the one sitting on an empty house.
Right?
That's doing
Fuck all.
nothing for nobody.
Right.
I kind of hope Glenda wins, but I like George, so I don't want anything nasty to happen to him. But I think it's the right thing for Glenda to get her fair share here.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, moving on. Our final storyline tonight is reality coding bites. On Monday, Simon's in Nina's roles talking to Bobby and Carla about leaving later today. He's a bit pissed that Leanne hasn't come back from her stupid retreat thing to see him off. Carla gives him some cash to make sure he leaves, and he fucks off to continue day 5 of his packing. He's been saying he's been packing for about a week. This actually consists of one bag.
Yeah.
At home, he's still worried that Leanne hasn't come back, and this allows Nick and Toya to fret privately about it. Ken arrives. It's Ken in Victoria Court, which I don't think's happened before.
Right. Yes. Bearing
Mustard
and tea. Here's some tea and some mustard.
You can come back anytime, Ken.
Yes, here's some tea and some mustard, because nowhere in the world has tea and mustard.
Well, a boat maybe would have it in short supply, let's say.
Yes, a boat with very limited space.
Then Leanne bursts in. She was held up after yesterday's workshops, and she's fucking furious to learn that Simon's leaving and no one told her.
We all tried to tell you. We left a message.
Nick points out that he told Rowan, who clearly forgot to tell her, and this shuts her up a bit, but she's still not happy and reckons Nick and Toya have talked him into it. Upset and angry, she storms off.
Which is a bold claim, considering that we've already gone through a cycle where Simon was supposed to join his dad on a boat, and she encouraged it.
Right. Her walk doesn't do anything to calm her down, and in the bistro later, she shouts at Nick and Toya for going behind her back. So Toya has to explain about Simon drinking again and passing out while she was off doing mindfulness.
Right, yeah, on a bench in the precinct. Not just passing out in his bed, on a bench
Yeah.
in the precinct.
Where he got done over by two ne'er-do-wells. Nick thinks the fault for this lies squarely on Leanne and sticks up for Toya. Later, it's Simon's time to leave, and for a horrible moment, it looks like his final words on the show are going to be, "Enjoy the drizzle, losers." But he has a proper goodbye with Leanne outside, but he's loaded into the cab on a Monday night episode about halfway through part 3. After he's gone, Leanne goes for another wee walk. Toya's on the verge of holding an intervention and reckons that she'll do some more digging on the Institute. Meanwhile, Leanne's on a call to someone, or that's what it looks like, where she explains that Simon has gone, she's on her own, and how the person she's talking to is the only one that she wants. And we're, I think, meant to think that this is Rowan.
Now, see, from the very beginning, I thought it was just like a picture of Oliver that she was talking to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just like a picture. Which would be fine and normal. A picture of the actual Oliver. You know, because the show has been talking up an awful lot about the fact that all of this stuff affects her because of Oliver.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I don't understand why all of Leanne's storylines lead back to Oliver when none of Steve's storylines lead back to Oliver. But never mind. Because there's no back and forth. So I initially always thought that it was like she was speaking to a picture because nobody else is speaking in that scene, in that first scene.
No else. But she's got, looks
And
like
I
she
don't
had
think she
headphones
had.
on.
I don't think she had the earbuds in
At some point
until
she
the
did.
second time
Yeah, maybe.
in the morning.
Simon's departure, though, is a big part of Monday's episode. And to say it was hurried along, I think is maybe understating it a little bit. You would normally expect someone who's been in the show for that length of time to get the final scene of the episode, and the kind of theme tune comes on as the black cab's going down the cobbles. But not only did that not happen, and not only was it a Monday instead of a Friday, it didn't happen in part 4. It didn't even happen at the end of part 3. It happened kind of oddly a half of the way, 3/4 of the way through part 3 of the show.
At least he got a black cab.
He got a black cab, and he got a little smile. I don't know if he was happy with the way that this was done, but if he wasn't happy, I could absolutely see where he's coming from. I don't think it was given anything like the level it deserved. And even if you don't like Simon as a character, and there's an awful lot of people that don't like Simon as a character, and I haven't liked Simon as a character.
And that's not Alex's fault.
No, it's not. But, you know.
I think it's important to point out to people that that's not Alex's fault.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do blame Alex, though.
But to be that length of time on the show and kind of get your departure kind of overlooked by Leanne's little mystery chinwag here, I think it does a disservice.
Yeah, no, I see that. Yeah, and apparently, you know, when he initially said that he was leaving the show, he seemed fine with it, but there were some stories that he kind of changed his mind and said, no, wait a second. I think maybe I do want to stay on the show. And they were like, well, never mind. You're still off because we don't know what to do with you.
I think it's a good thing.
Which is unfair.
Yeah, and I think with looking that way, I think it's probably better that he's not on it.
Yeah.
But still, I would have preferred just a little bit more pomp for his
Yeah, he
departure.
deserved more.
So on Wednesday then, Toya is highly strung in the morning in her attempts to find some dirt on the Institute. Lan is still in a foul mood with everyone, so Nick suggests a night out to clear the air. Yeah, nights out when you're in a foul mood are always the way to go. Leanne is agreeable but has a video call scheduled. Later at work, Toya has found that her post on social media has been removed and she's been threatened by the Institute's lawyers. On overhearing, Bethany remembers a friend was looking at their financials but got nowhere, and this gives Toya some vigour to continue her investigations. Back at the flat, Rowan arrives to find Leanne desperate for an upload. Oh my, you could tell that she was desperate for an upload. He tells her about...
But not like that.
He tells her about Toya's social media campaign, and Leanne is super pissed. Rowan reminds her what she learned at the retreat, that anger begets more anger, disrupts imperial decision-making, creating a loop of negativity that can be hard to break. They made that poor man say that.
They did.
So Leanne has been on an anger management course then for the past 2 weeks and has come back fucking furious.
She really has.
Meanwhile, Toya has been banned from 3 different social media platforms and is served with a cease and desist order, and she's getting sued for defamation. When she and Nick approached Leanne about this, Leanne is Team Rowan, but claims she knew nothing about the legal action. Toya calls the Institute a scam, and she goes off to see Adam. Adam suggests writing an apology and keeping her fingers crossed that gets them off her back. Nick thinks that she should just do that. The last thing she needs is this stress. Do it for him, he says. So she thinks about it and calls him the best brother-in-law ever, forever, ever. Back home, Nick has finally had enough and gets stuck into Leanne about that fucking institute, but finds Leanne in a disinterested mood. Toya, she says, loves the drama and no one will enjoy being sued more than her. Boy, have they done a fucking number on you, says Nick, and he leaves. Leanne gets back on her laptop. Hello, gorgeous, she says. I love you.
Hello, gorgeous.
Hello, gorgeous.
That's the worst Barbara Streisand impersonation I've ever heard.
It wasn't meant to be a Barbara Streisand impersonation.
She's the one who says, hello, gorgeous.
It wasn't meant to be Barbara Streisand.
Well,
it was
who
meant
else?
to be Liza Minnelli. On Friday, Toya gets up to hear Leanne say that she loves you so much to her laptop and gently quizzes her about it. Leanne has had a change of heart and tells Toya that she'll have a word with Rowan if Toya backs down. And a bit later, Nick is furious that Leanne has changed her veg supplier to someone in the institute. Is shaking this horrible looking carrot.
So hilarious.
Put the carrot down, says Toya. And she tells him about the laptop incident. Nick thinks it was Rowan and immediately starts to cry. He rushes home to find Rowan in his living room and assumes the worst, especially after Toya's revelation.
And also because Leanne and Rowan are holding hands.
Yes, there is that.
They're holding hands. What are we supposed to think about that?
Leanne explains that the love thing was Oliver, and she's got this.
And it's Oliver as he would look like now, which is not how any human being looks like now.
And he's been turned into an AI avatar.
Right.
Who's creepy as fuck.
Yes.
And says, hello, mummy.
And whose head is the wrong shape.
She says she has her wee boy back. Except it's not.
No.
Because it's creepy.
Yes.
As fuck.
Yes.
Nick tells Rowan to leave while Leanne insists that it brings her peace. Nick isn't interested in playing along because she tries to get Nick to talk to this.
You can talk to him.
Fuck
it's
off,
fine. You can talk to him. No.
He goes back to spill his woes onto Toya, who is clearly Team Nick in all this shite. She spots Rowan on the street and accuses him of fleecing Leanne and calling him a con man. Rowan says if Toya was a good sister, Leanne wouldn't be with them, and he shows that he knows quite a bit about Leanne's history because he says something that insinuates he knows that Leanne had a sex worker background or a sex worker past. Toya will gladly break the injunction and go to prison for her sister, she says. Rowan warns her that she's on thin ice. Back at the flat, Nick tells Leanne how worried he is about her and how consumed she is with the institute and telling her computer screen that she loves it. Leanne doesn't think this is any different from writing a letter to a loved one.
It's very different.
It's super different. A furious Toya comes in and joins in, jumping on Leanne, saying that Leanne has been treated like Rowan's mark here. And at this point, the cops arrive and promptly arrest Toya for murder. It's like, this scene is so dramatic, and the writers go, hold on a second, we're about to arrest Toya for murder. We
don't know that it's for murder yet, do we?
Yeah, that's what they say. You're under arrest on the suspicion of murder.
Right, and we're like, oh, finally, she's going down for Imran's death. No.
And it's Kit who takes her in and questions her about the tribute thing that she left in the park and the attack in the car. He explains that the police found baby remains there.
Yes, they did.
Toya comes clean and explains that it was a stillborn. Kit's a bit of a prick, so Toya asks for a break and a Kit Kat. Meanwhile, Leanne calls Rowan and asks if he reported Toya to the cops, which he denies without actually denying,
right?
Even though Rowan is the only one outside the family who knows anything.
Right.
He pretends to be upset that she didn't trust him, so she backs down.
Right, yeah, he insinuates that maybe those people who were after Creepy Roy Cropper were the ones who dug and found it. weeks
Well, how
later.
does he know about that?
Weeks and weeks later.
Back at the interview, a calmer Toya explains how she was the victim, how she was raped in 2001, and how she slapped a smile on her face afterwards and got on with her life, or at least pretended to do so. She admits to concealing the birth, but Kit thinks that maybe she deliberately killed Rose because of what she represented. Toya denies it, saying that she wasn't thinking straight. She hates thinking that Phil the rapist could possibly see this in the papers and do the maths. She's happy to carry the can for Rose's birth and burial, but says that she didn't hurt a hair on her head. She's let go while investigations continue, and it's a tearful Nick who collects her from the station. Back home, Leanne asks if she's going to be charged, and Toya must feel lighter now that the poison's out. Nick doesn't think this is the time for that shite. Leanne tells Toya to stop transmitting and start receiving. Toya now thinks that Leanne was the one who grassed her up, and so does Nick. Leanne denies it and says Toya was desperate to clear her conscience, but just wants to blame big bad Leanne. Toya then thinks that she told Rowan and storms out before Leanne can deny it, and calmly, Nick explains why Toya's in real danger of getting charged here and hopes that Leanne's not lying about telling Rowan. And that's how we end this week's episodes.
Yes.
So Leanne clearly has told Rowan.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Rowan more or less insinuates that when he's talking to Toya on the street. And also Toya says to Rowan, did you tell because you're the only other person who knows about this?
Yeah, there's only 3 people that know. Rowan,
Well,
Leanne,
4.
and Nick.
And Toya.
Well, obviously.
So, yeah. I mean, when she's talking to him on the phone, she basically says that she told him. So, yeah. Kind of fucked up, man.
Yeah. One thing I have to say, and I'm not going to go on about how this is reconned and stuff, and the 2001 that Toya explains kind of rings true with what happened, but it still seems very unlikely that this is this clearly is something that's been manufactured. But Toya and Georgia Taylor come very, very close to making me just believe it. I think Toya, when she's getting questioned, does a fantastic job of just about selling it.
Right.
And it's an impossible thing to sell because we remember watching it. But she does a really good job.
Giving birth is messy.
Yeah.
And you're never getting that out of the carpet.
What did you think of Kit? Just doing his job or a bit of an asshole?
I mean, there are times that he seems really sympathetic.
Mm-hmm.
But then turns around and says, after he says, I'm really sorry for what happened to you. And that should not have happened to you. But then he turns it around and says, you do realize that this makes it seem even more likely that you would have done something to that baby.
Yeah.
That you had motive.
I guess he is looking at it dispassionately. And this is what I gave Swain credit for when confronting Roy. That as far as Swain was concerned, Roy looked like the guiltiest man alive.
Right.
And Kit, I guess, can't really just take Toya's word for it.
Right. It does kind of seem like Kit hates women, though.
It's coming across that way a little bit, yeah.
Right. And I blame Bernie, of course.
Oh, it's obviously the
Right, yeah,
the
it's the
mother's
whole
fault.
mum thing.
Yeah, definitely the mum's fault. Leanne is getting deeper and deeper into this.
Yep. Next week, that tattoo pen is coming out.
Some rubbing alcohol onto the vagina there. That's kind of smart, isn't it?
That's going to sting. No, and it's the outside of the labia. You don't have to put it actually in the vagina.
Okay, well, that makes all the difference.
Yes. Look it up, people. This is what actually happened in the Nexium cult. Look it up.
Don't look at the images.
Well, no. I don't think there are images.
Leanne is getting at the point where I really don't care. I really don't care about her anymore. She's become just impossible to like. And it's a shame because none of this is her fault.
No. Yeah.
She was vulnerable and she's been taken advantage of by the Rowan character, who is becoming increasingly sleazy the longer this is going on.
Yeah. And, I get that, but we kind of already did this storyline with the online psychic taking all her money and making her think she was talking to Oliver.
Well, sure.
You know? And again, Oliver had two parents who loved him very much. Why is it that only one of those two parents' storylines all revolve years later in the fact that Oliver died? Come on, Coronation Street. Give Jane something better to do.
Yeah, while the Oliver storyline was going on, we were like, she needs a break. And in the misery of Leanne, while Jane did an incredible job, as always, it was becoming really difficult to watch because it was going on for so long. And then in the aftermath, you had the whole business with Simon and the drug dealers and
Right.
and Jacob and Harvey and all that stuff. And then the Coronation Street, it felt like it was just a never-ending cycle of misery
Right.
for Leanne. And then she finally got a little break. But it turns out that she's still living in the shadow of this storyline, and it's got a little bit more misery to pile onto her
Yeah.
before it's done. And
Yeah. Meanwhile, Steve is online dating.
yeah. And fighting Tim as a dinosaur.
That happened before Oliver died. Maybe that's why Steve doesn't do that anymore.
Because he's sad for Oliver?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's
He
why.
just doesn't say it.
He's just run out of packaging stuff, I guess. Nick and Toya.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen. It's becoming
Gonna happen.
increasingly likely to happen. And I have to say, the longer this is going on, I'm kind of for it.
Yeah, me too. I'm okay with it.
What they've done to Leanne's character
Right.
has made her just... I feel really sorry for Nick having to
Right.
deal with
I
that.
feel sorry for Nick and Toya, because here Toya's gone through this devastating thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then she comes home and Leanne basically tells her, well, you did it to yourself.
Yeah, buckle up, buckaroo.
Yeah. No, that's not. And it sucks, because one of the great things about these two characters, Leanne and Toya, is that they really have been a strong example of sisterhood and have stood up for one another. And it's the two of them against the world for most of the show. So to have this break between them and having it be because of a cult and a creepy AI manifestation of Oliver.
Oscar Isaacs.
I was thinking Oscar the Grouch, but Oscar Isaac works too.
Yeah. If only. Yes, poor Oliver.
Yes, poor Oliver.
Poor Oliver.
Poor Oliver.
She's turned the wains against us. Yeah. Yeah, all that kind of building up and yeah, the relationship that Nick and Toya are having now kind of feels almost similar to the relationship that Nick and Leanne had as they got back together again. Remember Imran and Nick standing out in the balcony in their underpants?
Yes.
Good times.
How could I forget?
Good times.
How could I forget? How could
That was such a great moment.
that and, Tyrone and Phil with 2 L's mud wrestling in their knickers.
Yep.
The show really, really gives to its gay fan base. Happy Pride, everyone.
Happy Pride.
Happy Pride.
Oh, well. That was the week that was Coronation Street, Helen.
Yes.
Tell me, what was your... As if I don't know. What was your moment of the week?
Well, personally, for me, it's whatever Bethany, because that was just so funny. And that's how the show ends.
That's it. That's the show on Monday, right?
That's how the show on Monday ends. The last line in the show is whatever Bethany, spoken by Bethany's mother.
Oh, right. Whatever, Bethany.
Whatever, Bethany. Sure, you've got spidey senses.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
So that's not your moment of the week.
It is, but it can't be.
Okay.
We have to have something less
we don't-
ridiculous.
Well, we don't have to have something less ridiculous.
What was it? Is it Simon leaving?
See, it should be Simon leaving, but the way they did it isn't Simon leaving.
I think the build up to Simon leaving was really lovely. How he had breakfast with Carla and Bobby, and then he got to see his grandfather, who refuses to give him his portion of his grandmother's money, but is perfectly willing to give him tea and mustard. you know.
English mustard. And
That's nice.
And that's for Peter.
Yeah.
It's not for Simon.
The T is for Simon, though. Which makes me wonder if it's tea or if it's tea.
Oh, a little of the devil's lettuce.
Yeah. You know Ken is growing in the backyard, right? I kid.
Yeah, they don't have the weather for it.
No, they really don't.
But it does explain why that light shining out of his attic 24/7.
Yeah, the way that it builds up to his leaving, and thank God Leanne does show up before he leaves. If Leanne hadn't shown up before he left,
Well, I don't know. It would be like Simon not showing up before Peter left.
right? Yeah, but that wasn't Simon's fault. Nobody tried to get a hold of him, did
No.
they? Whereas at least they tried to get a hold of Leanne.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like Simon deserves this.
I think Simon deserved more, but
Right. He deserves moment of the week, regardless of what his moment was like.
fair enough. We
Simon
will give
leaving.
it our...
Moment of the week.
And your boring moment of the week?
Bleach tea towels.
Stu. Oh, I really liked that part of that storyline. I kid. I hated every second of it. Yes, Stu bleaching his tea towels like the prick he is our...
Boring moment of the week.
Now,
Notice that I said the tea towels and not the chickens part, because every mention of the chickens is delightful.
yeah, we like the mention of the chickens. He was about to win me round with that.
But then he had to
mentioned the tea
mention
towels.
bleaching tea towels. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I asked, as I usually do, for our Twitter followers to tell me what they thought of this week's episodes, whether it was a yay, a meh, or a zzz. Now, we had a resounding seal of approval last week,
Right.
and I'm sad to say that it's gone back to its usual,
Meh.
its usual split, where 25% say yay, 43% say meh, and 30-odd% say zzz. What was your score, though, Helen, out of 10?
What did I give it last week? An 8.5?
You gave it a super score last week, yeah.
Yeah. I'll say a 6. It wasn't bad.
I don't think it was a bad week either, and
No.
especially a week after the big week.
Yeah, nothing outraged me this week.
No, I thought it was decent.
Yeah. I mean, I have voiced my complaint about only one of Oliver's parents deeply grieving still.
Yeah, I remember you doing that.
But that's not really outrage at this point. It's just kind of resignation. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Jelly bean?
Resignation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll give it a 6 as well.
Yeah.
I thought it was decent.
It's all right.
I quite liked Friday's episode. I thought we got lots of good stuff from Toya.
Yeah.
And
I liked whatever Bethany.
that was good
It
enough
made
for
me
Monday
like
for you.
It made me.
Briefly like Sarah.
Yeah.
Good enough.
It gave Sarah a point.
This episode was brought to you with thanks to our friends of the podcast. Daisy, French Helen, Pickles, DT, Trisha, Wendy, Noel, Canadian Helen, Christy, Shandy, English Victoria, Aurora Yvonne, Heather Westerfield, Russa Whiting and Jackie B. Thank you so much, everybody. If you've ever looked into the artificially generated eyes of the thing that's going to kill you, write in to tell us about it. We're the talk of the street at gmail.com, and we're at Corrie Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Threads and Blue Sky. You can shout me and Helen a coffee or become a friend of the podcast by heading to ko-fi.com, that's ko-fi.com/the talk of the street, or patreon.com/the talk of the street. Check out voggle.co.uk for links to our merch store, YouTube channel and blog. And if you're so inclined, please leave a rating and a review on the iTunes or your podcast provider of choice. And be sure to check out our pop culture sister podcast, The List of Lists.
We talked about brownface again this week.
No, you talked about brownface again this week. Thanks for making it to the end of another episode, and we'll be back next week with more
Talk of the street.
Talk of the Street.
Bye.
Cheerio.